And US Secretary of State arrives in Paris seeking to boost European support for an emerging nuclear deal with Iran. The Emiri Diwan mourned the death of Sheikh Badr Abdullah Al Mohammed Al Salman Al Sabah, who passed away at the age of 54. The body was interred today after Al-Asr prayer. The 143rd session for Arab League permanent delegates kicked off today as preparatory session for the Arab Foreign Ministers meeting due next Monday. The two-day meeting, chaired by Jordan, will look into 28 points relevant to Arab national security, as well as political, economic and social cooperation amongst Arab nations. The Arab Foreign Ministers meeting on March 9th will be the precursor for the upcoming Arab Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh on March 28th. Kuwait is represented at the meeting by permanent delegate to the Arab League, Ambassador Aziz Al-Dayani. The meeting will also be attended by Arab League Secretary Nabil. The Kuwaiti High Committee for Relief began today a campaign to provide aid to Syrian refugees in Turkey. Head of the Kuwaiti Committee, Khalid Bourama, told Kuna that the campaign will help some 750,000 Syrian refugees in Turkey facing a harsh winter. He indicated the campaign will distribute around $1.9 million of relief aid material. The campaign went previously to Jordan, Lebanon, regions bordering Turkey. Meanwhile, Kuwait's Al Bunyan charitable campaign also handed today 6 tons of relief aid to some 320 Syrian refugee families in Jordan to ease the suffering of Syrian refugees in Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey and Erbil. Iraqi army and members of the Allied militia achieved rapid success in their biggest offensive against so-called IS group in the outskirts of the Iraqi town of Tikrit. The army, joined by thousands of militiamen, is 5 days into an advance in Tikrit, by far the biggest target yet in a campaign to roll back last year's advance by IS militants. Sweeping through, military commanders said units had retaken the town of Al-Dor on Tikrit's outskirts. Meanwhile, Minister of Interior visited the operations sector near Tikrit and discussed plans for militia taking part in the operation. He described an operation to sweep around to the west and east of Tikrit to isolate the insurgents in the city. Kurdish sources in northern Iraq say that so-called IS militants have begun destroying the ruins of the ancient city Hatra. Hatra was founded in the days of the Parthian Empire over 2,000 years ago and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Earlier this week, IS militants began bulldozing the nearby ruins of the Assyrian city of Nimrud. Meanwhile, the head of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Irina Bokova, condemned the IS attack on the irreplaceable remains of Nimrud, an ancient Assyrian capital in Iraq. She said the destruction at Nimrud in northern Iraq was a cultural cleansing. Clashes broke out in West Bank, leaving at least 7 injured by Israeli soldiers' gunfire yesterday, and a Palestinian killed by Israeli soldiers in Jerusalem after attempting to stab a settler in the city in an individual attack. More in the following report with Fatma Abdul Karim.
A new martyr, Mohammed Salaime, 22 years old, killed immediately by Israeli soldiers after he attempted to stab settlers, leaving 5 Israelis injured. The attack was not adopted by any organization and comes in a sequence of individual attacks as a result of heightened Israeli restrictions against Palestinians.
The Palestinian citizen in Jerusalem wants to get rid of this occupation and live a normal life. Therefore, we are seeing every once in a while incidents in which our youth are sacrificing their lives for their country and the holy places. This is Jerusalem's 15th martyr since last July.
In the West Bank, at least 7 others were injured by Israeli gunfire in Al Jalazon refugee camp, Silwad village, and the city of Betunia, all near Ramallah. The 3 locations witnessed heavy clashes between Palestinian youth and Israeli soldiers after they attempted to disperse peaceful demonstrations on Friday.
Yesterday, around 15 places in all of the West Bank, many clashing, many people injured. We saw the violence from the soldiers everywhere. We saw the Palestinian activists with the international, with some Israeli in many places trying to arrive the bulldozers, the wall, the gates, without any violence, but we saw the violence from the other side, from the soldiers.
Many believe that this increased tension witnessed in the West Bank and Jerusalem comes as a natural reaction to Israel's continued policies of land grab and the obstruction of the daily life of Palestinians. Fatma Abdel Karim, State of Kuwait Television, Ramallah, Palestine.
British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond revealed clampdown on businessmen and companies supporting the IS militants and Syrian regime. The news came as it was reported that a military chief and several top commanders of the al-Qaeda-affiliated al-Nusra Front were killed in northwestern Syria. Sanctions have been placed on people and institutions suspected of being linked to the so-called IS terrorists and Syrian regime. In addition, sanctions were announced against those responsible for organising chemical weapons attacks, including the Ghouta attacks, in which up to 1,400 people were estimated to have died. Chemical weapons producers were also targeted by the sanctions. Egyptian officials say a bomb has exploded in front of an Emirati bank branch in the central Delta city of Mahala, killing a policeman and a civilian and wounding 20. Egypt has been witnessing a mounting wave of bomb attacks reportedly by militants that has killed and injured hundreds. That came after Egypt's military killed dozens of suspected militants in an operation in Sinai Peninsula. It was not immediately known who planted the bomb in the area as further investigations were underway. Militants attacked an oil field in central Libya, killing 8 guards before setting into blaze in the latest in a spate of attacks on petroleum facilities blamed on so-called Islamic State militants. The gunmen attacked Al Ghani oil field near the town of Zala, some 750 kilometres southeast of the capital Tripoli. It was not immediately clear if the militants seized control of the field or fled. The attacks in recent weeks forced Libya to declare 11 fields non-operational, including Al Ghani, and invoke a force majeure clause that exempts the state from contractual obligations. Libya's oil production has meanwhile dropped to about 25% of normal levels. It recently reached 500,000 barrels per day. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said in a Friday that commitments offered by Iran in talks with 6 world powers on its nuclear program do not go far enough and more work needs to be done. Fabius said he had invited US Secretary of State John Kerry, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini, and the foreign ministers of Germany and Britain to Paris today to review the state of the Iran nuclear negotiations. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Paris today to brief European officials on the status of nuclear negotiations with Iran. With an end-of-month deadline looming to produce the outlines of a deal that would curb the Iranian nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief, Kerry was meeting the foreign ministers of France, Germany and Britain in the French capital. Kerry's discussions followed 3 days of intense negotiations with Iran in Switzerland and ahead of the next round due to begin on 15th of March. Dozens of people are reported to have died in Nigeria in 3 separate attacks in the key northeastern city of Maiduguri. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the explosions, but they have all the hallmarks of the Boko Haram extremist group. It has increased suicide bombings and village attacks recently as forces from Nigeria and Chad have driven the insurgents from a score of towns along Nigeria's border with Cameroon. Nigeria's presidential and parliamentary elections have been postponed by 6 weeks to the 28th of March to give troops more time to beat back Boko Haram. Militants killed 5 people today in a gun attack, including a French citizen and a Belgian security officer with the EU delegation in the country, and injured 9 others in a restaurant in Mali's capital. Authorities said that as the 2 surviving gunmen fled down a neighbouring street, they shot a Belgian man who was in front of his house. Not far away, they came across a police vehicle and threw a grenade, killing the driver. The two gunmen were arrested after the police surrounded the restaurant and areas around it. French President François Hollande condemned the attack as cowardly, and his Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius called to fight terrorism in all its forms. Meanwhile, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini denounced the attack and added one of the victims of the Bamako attack was a Belgian security officer with the EU delegation in the capital. Malaysia's Transport Minister and member of Bentong Parliament, Liao Tiong Lai, said the MH370 airliner, which disappeared almost a year ago with 239 people on board, will be found in the southern Indian Ocean. Liao said that ships looking for debris from the plane on the ocean floor off the coast of Western Australia have so far scoured 44% of the 60,000 square kilometres. The search team identified 10 hard objects that still need to be analysed. Australia, Malaysia and China will meet next month to discuss the next steps in the search. Meanwhile, Australia is leading an international search team in the southern Indian Ocean, approximately 1,600 kilometres off its west coast. As part of the activities that are related to the International Women's Day, Kuwaiti women doctors organised a special bazaar to promote women's health at Beit Lothan in Salmiya. The Kuwait Women Doctors, or KWD, is a group of female doctors of different ages and specialities connected by career and the understanding that there is more in life than just medicine. Heba Abdul Rahman was there and has this report.
Coinciding with the International Women's Day, Beit Lothan hosted a specialized bazaar organized by Kuwait women doctors.
Today we're going to have a bazaar in Beit Lothan. It's the 7th of March. It's to encourage healthcare professionals who have businesses and also non-healthcare professionals. It's also in the honor of International Women's Day.
Well, I found out through Instagram, wbat.com, and I instantly followed them and I contacted them and I said I'd like to be a part. Right now we're organizing the first International Women's Day Bazaar in Kuwait. It's at Beit Lothan, and it's this great event for women, especially in the health field, to show off their talents and their businesses outside of the health field. Also, there are some other women who aren't in the health field and they're still selling their stuff, and it's really great.
We are here to promote women's health care. There are lots of issues that are related to women's healthcare, such as family planning, related to pregnancy, older women's healthcare.
The event took place the whole day and was full of different and diversified activities, such as art galleries, special programs for the children, charity events, as well as the presence of a number of special personalities talking about women's experiences.
I'm participating with the magic whiteboard. They come in rolls and they can stick to any flat surface, and it's static, you don't need glue or tape. And you can also use it as a bulletin board to stick stuff on it. And it's a whiteboard, you can write on and erase.
Our participation today is based on the research from Dr. Budwig itself. Dr. Budwig was born at 1908 in Germany. She was the first woman who was nominated for 7 Nobel Prizes in biology, chemistry, physics, and pharmacists.
Many entities and individuals took part in the event, such as doctors, dentists, medical students, or healthcare professionals who are interested in the field.
As usual, Beit Lothan couldn't miss the opportunity to participate in such an important and unique event as the International Women's Day and organized this special bazaar. From Beit Lothan, I am Heba Abdul Rahman reporting for English News.
For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. That's all the news for now, but you can join us again for the news brief at 11 p.m. Before we end, here is a quick reminder of today's headlines. The Kuwaiti High Committee for Relief began a campaign to provide aid to Syrian refugees in Turkey. Iraqi army and members of the Allied militia achieved rapid success in their biggest offensive against the so-called IS in Tikrit. International community and UNESCO condemn destroying the ruins of ancient Hatra city in northern Iraq. And US Secretary of State arrives in Paris seeking to boost European support for an emerging nuclear deal with Iran.